Arizona football continues to move out the roster, but there are some positions that do need to continue to be addressed.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Check it out, FanDuel, my friends. Where is this little emblem that I can put in there before we get started? I will find this. FanDuel, where is it? I can't find it. There's so many different things. Oh, there it is. All right, now let's talk about Arizona football. We've got a lot to get to. Now, I've been saying this for quite a while now. In my opinion, there's no reason that Arizona football should not be a top 25 team in the country. And even better than that, I think they should be a top 20 team. That's where we're at. That's what I believe, and I believe that I am right. So, now, there are some issues. Let's talk about the strengths of the team first. Now, obviously, Noah Fafita is awesome. Duh. And then the wide receivers, we lost our guy Kevin Green. I like Kevin Green a great deal. Kind of sad about that one, but I understand it. But you still have, obviously, T-Mac. You still have Malachi Riley. You have Montana Lamonius Craig. And you have some other players that are being brought in as well. So either way, that's a good position. Offensive line, you've got two really, really, really good players. And then you got our guy Leif Magnuson and Josh Baker. Solid. Not great, the two, but solid. But two really above average guys. The D-line, I'm fine with the starting D-line, but I think there's some work to be done there. Then Jacob Manu, very, very big fan of Jacob Manu, obviously. An All-American candidate, Jacob Manu. And then the DBs, there's some positions that need to be probably addressed, but we will get to those. So let's talk about it. Offensive line depth. That is something that Arizona needs, and Arizona needs in a big way. The first thing when you look at this team is that you notice that, like we just talked about, Jonas Savaiinaea is a monster. I believe that he's going to be a top 10 to 15 pick when it becomes time. He is, I think Jed Fish put it pretty well when he said that. I think Jed Fish put it pretty well when he said, "Yeah, we don't really see players like Jonas Savaiinaea very often in college football." And this is when he was a freshman, and the way that he carries his weight is absolutely insane. He's about 6'3", probably 330 pounds. But what's wild about him is he's got abs. Like, he is just a really, really, really well put together dude. And it's fortunate for Arizona that the COVID year happened, because if it wasn't for the COVID year, then I don't know that Arizona would be getting him. Like I said, he is very, 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 very good. He's what the starters at Georgia and Alabama look like. That's kind of where we are at. So then you've also got Wendell Moy. Wendell Moy, big time player, and another really good addition. He from Long Beach Poly. An interesting story with Wendell Moy, because he was committed to Morgan State, and I believe that was as a wish to his, I believe to his grandfather or his father. I can't remember. But then he's obviously a lot better than that. That was a really good spot by the coaching staff, and Wendell Moy is now here at the U of A. Air Washington tried their hardest to get him, and Wendell Moy said, "No, I will not do that. I will stay here." So Arizona is pretty good in that spot. And so that's kind of where we're at. That's kind of where we're at as far as the really good defense, offensive linemen. But we got to talk about some of the other things. Josh Baker, solid at center. Leif Magnuson at the guard, solid. But there's been some disappointments. Alex Deuce, not really, I think, what people were hoping he was. And honestly, that doesn't surprise me a ton. That one never made a lot of sense to me, because he was a low 3-star kid that went to Northwestern and got buried on the depth chart at Northwestern. That just kind of is what it is. And then some of the other players that I think you will that we will look at and probably figure out pretty quickly where they are at is Big Rhino. Rhino's okay. I don't know that Rhino's ever going to be a starter. And then Elijah Payne, Tylen Gonzalez, those guys I understand taking a shot at them because I understand taking a shot at them because they are bigger guys, but also not probably just not good enough. Hate to say it, probably just not good enough. So you got to be able to find some more players in there. Now, Raymond Polito has got a world of potential. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he's a big dude. He can move really well. But the problem with Raymond is Raymond's always hurt. Hate to really just put it that bluntly to you, but Raymond is just always hurt. So there is that. You'd like him to be able to be good, but there's also that factor that you're playing a premium position, and not only are you playing a premium position, you're playing a position where you're getting hurt a lot. That is something that you can't really have happen. So you feel good about it, but he hasn't played a ton, so there is that. Now, who have you brought in? Michael Wooten, interesting story. Now, a kid out of Oregon, very large. Obviously went to Oregon for a year, didn't play. I don't care if a kid, this to me is a little bit different than Deuced. I don't care if a kid is buried on the depth chart at Oregon because that is an entirely different animal. But I do care to a certain degree if you're also kind of a low 3-star kid, not somebody that Oregon really generally offers. This was a unique situation, and we'll find out exactly what he's about. But the new coaching staff at U of A does like him. He does provide some depth, so there is that. So, but I don't know exactly what I'm counting on, but there is obviously there's an opportunity for him to play for sure, because this offensive line has to get better. I don't think that there's any doubt about it. Noah Fafita, anybody that went to the spring game knows this. Noah Fafita was absolutely, he is sharp. He is ready to go. He is just, Noah Fafita is that dude. I don't think there's anybody, any doubt about that. But the offensive line also is giving up a lot of pressure. And when you go into another conference and they know that Noah Fafita is back there, you are going to have people that are pinning their ears back. We do not want that. So we need an offensive line to be able to cover Noah Fafita and be able to get him the time that he needs. And that was something that I think was kind of, you saw that certainly in the during the regular season where the offensive line was pretty good for the U of A. But then when Jordan Morgan went out, everything kind of went to hell. Now, granted, Joe Borjon is gone. Joe Borjon, this was with all due respect, sure he's a great player. Joe Borjon was terrible. And you saw that against Oklahoma. Oklahoma knew exactly what they were going to try to do. They had to put in Leif Magnuson. Our guy Leif, and Leif, I thought, did an admirable job. But Arizona's got to continue to get guys on the offensive line. This one isn't over, and I think coach put it really well when he said, listen, he said that none of this is, in this day and age, none of your rosters aren't set till August 1. This is not, in the past where you're just worried about, all right, let's just get guys in here, allow them to just keep playing, allow them to keep performing, and then they'll eventually be there. We're in a different era now. We're in a vastly different era, and I think that people need to understand that, and that's certainly where Arizona is right now. So there is obviously that. Now, let's talk a little bit then about where should we talk about? Why don't we talk a little bit then about the defensive line? Because the offensive line obviously needs to continue to be addressed. We're going to continue to talk about that. But first, Monopoly Go! All right, now everybody has played Monopoly Go at some point growing up, and that is because Monopoly is fun. Monopoly is one of those hair-raising things that can be very, very annoying. But at the same time, Monopoly Go is also enjoyable. And this can be virtual. You don't need to be cramped into the little attic that you shared with your sister and your whatever the case may be. With Monopoly Go, you are good to go. You can play this one virtually. Download Monopoly Go free on the App Store and Google Play. Again, this is one of those ones, as I always tell you, you will thank me later on. Monopoly Go is where it's at. and again, have a fun, immersive experience with Monopoly Go and with your family members. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, let's talk a little bit about the defensive line. You just picked up Chase Kennedy from Utah. Now, a little bit undersized, 6'3", 230, but the coaching staff likes him, and he's from Utah. Utah is one of the best producers of defensive linemen in the country. And this is another one of those ones, just because you can't play at Utah doesn't mean that you can't play somewhere else. I like bringing in Chase Kennedy. I am totally cool with it. We're also in the day and era, though, where you know that if a kid doesn't work out, then so be it. They will be in the portal again. So I like the D-line. Like I said, I like the starting D-line. I think with Kevon Darton, Chuba May, messed that up a few times, Isaiah Johnson, and then another one that we're going to get to. And then on the outside, you got Trey Alexander, and you've also got Tai Uiagalelei. You got to be able to get a little bit better there on those. You just need some more edge. You need some more players that have a little bit of that bend to them. Bend, don't break. And so there is very, very much that in play. So you got to be able to keep that one in mind. But Chase Kennedy, another body out there, because maybe another one to keep an eye on is Sterling Lane. We haven't talked a ton about Sterling Lane, ex-4-star kid, Deuce Lane. But maybe this is the year that he kind of breaks through. He had a sack in the scrimmage, and you heard his name mentioned from time to time, so certainly somebody to maybe keep an eye on. Just saying, maybe keep an eye on him. He's going to be, I think that will be another enticing possibility for the University of Arizona, would be what he can do. But Chase Kennedy is somebody that Arizona obviously needs. And then you've also got Jarra Anderson out of Memphis. The coaching staff loves this kid, and it is easy to see why. He's big, and he played quite a bit at Memphis as a freshman, and he had a sack. I think he had 10 tackles. You got to remember, though, too, that when you're younger, sometimes these things take a little bit longer to develop. I believe that he is going to be a player for Arizona, and I believe that he is not only is he going to be an owner, or is he going to be a player for the University of Arizona? I do believe that he will be somebody that is going to be I think he could challenge for a starting spot. Now, it's going to be pretty difficult. We haven't seen Kevon Darton in yet. Keep in mind, kid out of Syracuse was an all-ACC performer, but very, very good, though, what he did. And Chuba has been obviously huge for U of A. Isaiah Johnson has been good as well. I feel pretty good, especially too with Jarra Alexander in there, Bear Anderson, excuse me. I feel pretty good about the D tackles. Now, hate losing BBN and Tia Savea, but you could also chalk BBN maybe up to more of a culture loss than anything else. But Arizona's been able to do a pretty good job, I think, of being able to replace some of these guys. So we will definitely keep you up to date on that. But Arizona on that D-line, I think, has done a pretty good job so far. But you got to continue. And I think big picture, you've really, really, really got to add another edge rusher too. But an edge rusher that can hopefully play. Now, keep in mind, that this thing is not done. Taylor Upshaw, Arizona got in. He got 8 sacks last year, and he wasn't even on the team until August. He was on the team, but he didn't go through spring. So there is an opportunity to be able to continue to go out there and get other players, and I think Arizona will certainly look to utilize that, but it's not done yet. So that is certainly a position to keep an eye on. Also, cornerback, DBs. One from San Jose State just entered the portal. He's big time. He can go pretty much anywhere he wants, and Arizona would love to have him. He would look great opposite Tacario Davis, who it does appear that Tacario is going to be staying at the U of A, and if he stays at the U of A, that will be a very, very good thing because he's a top 15 to 20 player in the NFL draft. Arizona needs these players, but you need somebody opposite him. I'm not breaking any news. The safeties are fantastic with Genesis Smith, with Dalton Johnson, and with Gunnar Maldonado. My bad, Gunnar. You're pretty much good to go. But G7, with all due respect, and this is with all due respect to G7, is not good enough, in my opinion, to be a starting quarterback at the Power 5 college football level, especially one that has preseason top 25 expectations. Again, would love to be wrong on that. I don't necessarily see it, though. So those are some of the guys that you need to keep an eye on. And Traden Stukes, you're going to just keep him in the nickel. I think coach really put it well when he said, we're not going to look to add somebody or we're not going to look to move around a really good player to another position. He said it's on us to be able to fill that spot. And I think that's exactly right. It's on Arizona to be able to fill that spot. If you can fill that spot, then you're going to be really good. Now, Arizona at the wide receiver spot, we talked about it. I still love the wide receivers. I hate losing Kevin Green because I think Kevin Green is going to be a pretty good player. But you replaced him. You've got Remello in from Old Dominion as a freshman, caught for 500 yards and I think 3 or 4 touchdowns. Noah Fafita's father tweeted out about his opinion on this kid. And obviously there are some very strong opinion. He said he's good, basically he's a good football player. And I'm going to take anything Les Fafita says and I am going to run with it, as we all should. But another player, though, that actually, that obviously is going to fit in, I think, well. And then there's some other guys that we haven't really talked about, the wide receiver room. Obviously, you've got a Jackson Holman who has been, he flashed throughout camp. But I think Malachi Riley is going to be that dude. I really do. I think Malachi Riley is going to be the player that is, when we look at it at the end of the season, I think he could be easily, and I mean this seriously, I think he could be someone that has 1,100 yards and 6 or 7 touchdowns. And the reason I say that is T-Mac's going to be drawing a lot of double teams, obviously, but having another player opposite him in Riley, who's a big, strong guy. And think about it last year, too. I thought he should have played a lot more. I mean, I know that Montana wasn't allowed to come off the field, but when you had Malachi Riley, when he got in, he generally got behind defenders. He generally made plays. And that's something that, especially as a receiver, you either have or you don't. He certainly showed that he had that. I'm excited to see what he can do. And then Montana, I'll just say this, we'll see what happens. But Bobby Wade has talked about him and said that he's been one of the leaders of the team. And this is the second straight coaching staff that likes him a lot. What I saw from him last year was somebody that really couldn't get separation and appeared to be a little bit more of a tight end. But who knows? Maybe you need another year, you get it unlocked, and he becomes a big player. If there's a My Bad Montana Lamonius Craig movement, I would love to be involved with that. But we'll find out. And then tight end, I think tight end's deep. I think tight end is more than okay. Roberto Miranda is going to be that starting tight end. I had forgotten that Roberto Miranda was even on the team, but this coaching staff is going to use the tight end a lot, and this coaching staff loves the tight end. And if the coaching staff really likes the tight end, then I am more than okay with it. So we're going to find out. We're going to find out just kind of where everything is with that. Now, we're going to get into some more scrimmage ideas, but first, let's say that you're looking at Arizona football's schedule and you're like, man, I'd love to be able to make it to a couple of those games, but I don't know how. Gametime. Check it out. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Here's the deal. So you can use this for concerts. You can use this for movies. You can use this for all variety, a smorgasbord of opportunities here from Gametime. Check it out. Download the Gametime app today. Again, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. The Gametime app is fantastic. People use it all the time. And again, there's a reason why. It's because it works. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Michael Luke. All right, now some more scrimmage thoughts. Listen, I love the skill players, but again, we're going to keep going back to this. The offensive line worries me a little bit at this stage because, again, Jordan Morgan was one of the handful of best offensive tackles in all of college football last year, and you saw that Arizona wasn't really able to replace him. Granted, I think that Arizona made a mistake in that game. I think playing Joe Borhone, was kind of stupid. I mean, that's probably the best way to put it. I think that you should have had Big Jonah at one of the tackles, Polito at one of the other ones, and then you bring in Leif Magnuson. Once they brought in Leif, it kind of stabilized everything. So that was obviously a good thing. But the offensive line's got to get depth. I think you got to get some better players in there as well. Some players that, can kind of, I guess, move the needle a little bit. But that's neither here nor there. But I would like to see the offensive line be addressed in a meaningful way. And I think the coaching staff probably feels that as well. And then from the rest of the offensive perspective, I'd like to see another a backup quarterback. I'd love to be wrong on Braden Dorman. I don't see it. I don't know that he's somebody that I feel comfortable with playing 3 or 4 games or something. And that's kind of how I judge backup quarterbacks. Am I comfortable if they come in for 3 or 4 games, them being able to make an impact? I don't know that I see that with him. I'd love to be wrong, but I don't see that with him. And then obviously on the defensive side, it's like we talked about. I think you got to get some more, you got to get a player or two that can really make some plays off the edge. That would be very, very nice. I think you need to get another linebacker as well. Leviticus Sua. I like Leviticus Sua a lot, but I think the problem with Leviticus Sua is that there's nothing really sudden about Leviticus in that he's kind of a stationary dude. He's kind of a plotter. And again, not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but there's not a lot of explosion, quick twitch out of Leviticus Sua. And that's something that you definitely like, especially when you're going to be going against passing offenses that have passing teams that, put up a lot of points through the air. That's something you'd like to see. And then obviously some more DBs as well. And one other thing too, you got to be able to, I think, have another power back. I love Quali Conley. I love Fam, obviously. I think those guys are really good to go. But I think you need to get another back in there as well. And then I think you're going to be pretty good to go. Jordan Washington, scram. We do not want Jordan Washington. Go up to Washington and have fun in smelly, rainy Seattle. But all right. So we talked a lot of football this show, obviously. We're going to talk some more Arizona basketball tomorrow. We're going to talk about the odd NBA draft declarations from some of the players that I think have caught a couple people's attention. Very, very unusual. But either way, you got 3 players that or at least 2 players officially that are getting feedback from the NBA. And Caleb Love, you would assume, is in there, even though he wasn't technically listed in there. That's probably an agent snafu, Mark Bartelstein. But then, and obviously, we're going to talk some Arizona football as well. The portal will be closed at that point. What will we know? What will the next step be for a variety of different things? But again, two really good Arizona football teams, or Arizona teams, football and basketball. And I think it's going to be fun to watch how this all unfolds. These teams are very, very good. And we're not ASU. We actually like sports here in the desert, and we will continue to like that in the old Pueblo. But, like I said, good time to be an Arizona football fan. And I think we should have some more news. We should have some news sooner than later as well. Wink, wink, wink. But again, thank you a ton for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. 2 top 25 teams we're sitting here talking about. Heck, maybe 2 top 15 teams. Again, so we will be back with you tomorrow, though. Bear down, back the A, and thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day.